What's good, mi gente? Welcome back. It's your boy Raul. Thanks for jumping on tonight and joining me on another Palante series. Today, my guest is Brenda De Los Santos, former interviewee as well. How's it going, Brenda?
It's good. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk us through a little bit of what, the importance of our headshots and how we can, make ourselves look and attract more potential business in the future from LinkedIn. So I guess to kind of start off, introduce yourself a little bit and tell the world who you are for those that didn't listen to our podcast episode.
Yeah. So I'm Brenda De Los Santos. I am a photographer. My business is Brenda De Los Santos Photography. I have been doing this for 18 years. And I'm based in Connecticut, and I do a little bit of everything, including headshots, which is part of why I'm so excited to be here tonight.
Nice, awesome, yeah. And it's when you live that world and you kind of see the how people do it, and then you go on LinkedIn and you see what people are using. Sometimes I'm sure you're like, oh God, I wish I could tell you how to change that and make your life a little better. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously, what's important is having a headshot is really important for a lot of people, especially on LinkedIn. So, can you tell me a little bit like why are headshots important?
Yeah. So headshots are so important. They're the first impression that people get of you. And without ever having met you, you can convey a sense of professionalism. You can convey competence, all kinds of things with people just by communicating with those visual cues with your photo.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, especially when you're trying to look for work, you're trying to really present yourself in a way, especially in LinkedIn, where people might not be, but people don't like reading, and so
Yeah.
you have to get them to, they're not going to look at your profile sometimes if you have a bad headshot. So, what are when you come around and you're looking at your headshots, how often is something that we need to be changing? That's something we should be changing often, or um, should we kind of keep it for a long time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I recommend that you have a new headshot every year or two. You could go as far as every 3 years, but realistically, we change as people, our bodies change, our hairstyles might change. I know I've gone through periods where, in 6 months, I've gone from purple to pink to short to all kinds of different hairstyles. And you want people to be able to see the authentic you so that when they do meet you, they have that recognition. It's going to help build trust with potential employers, with potential clients, anyone that you may want to work with in the future. And it also helps, it plays a really big role in networking. And you really want to be able to just build that sense of trust with your audience.
Yeah, when you talk about networking, it's interesting too because I know for me personally, the idea of headshots, and I know we're going to go into a little more detail about the different types of headshots that we can take. Um, I also try to figure out a way to use my headshots for other mediums. Like it's my
Mhm.
headshot that I'm using on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also on my website. How what other ways can we use our headshots?
Yeah. So there's a lot of uses. So number one, of course, is LinkedIn. If you're, I mean, you should be on there. I'm on LinkedIn. Do I use it as much as I probably should? No, but I'm on there and I have a headshot. So it can be for that. It can be on your business card, depending if you want to have that level of, um, kind of that personality on your business card. It can be used on your website. It certainly could be used on, your employer's website if that's something that they include, and any promotional materials for anything that you're doing. And it can also be used for, if you're going to speak at a conference or you're doing any kind of consultancy work, it's really important to have it for those purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I got my new job, the first thing they asked me was for a headshot and a bio, and I was freaking out. I'm like, so my headshot now, if anybody looks me up, is I took that in my backyard with my wife on a day that was just cold enough that the we still had snow on the ground, but it had melted off the trees, and we took like 16
Mhm.
pictures until I picked one. And but yeah, sometimes your new company says, hey, let's put that, or sometimes they'll put it on a. I know in my company we have it on everything. So your team's profile, your emails, your picture ends up going anything. So if you have one you don't like, it's going to haunt you for a while. So.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so I know we're going to get into a little more details, but I think one of the big concerns for a lot of people is I like to show my creative side. I want to feel very authentic, and I don't want to just feel
Mhm.
like one of those, especially with you don't want to just not come across as different ways. You know what I mean? Can you be authentic, and can you stick out with a headshot, or does it always have to be plain and boring?
No, you absolutely can really make your personality shine. I think depending on your industry, so, maybe if you're an attorney or you work in like pharmaceuticals or any industry like that where things are kind of a little bit more prim and proper, you might want a more professional, traditional headshot, something on a plain background. You want your professional best with your button down shirt and your tie or a nice blouse. But depending, you can really put your personality into your headshots. I have had my own headshots taken in a greenhouse. I've done them, out on a beach. I've done them just in a studio sitting on a couch or something like that. You can really make it as personal as you want it. And I think, especially today, we have the freedom to be a little more creative with it. So that's kind of the great thing about it.
Yeah, and it's well, I think for a lot of people with the way technology is now, we have the access to phones, and so our first instinct is, oh yeah, I can just do this and I can just do that. And we take so many more pictures than we ever do, and it's very common for people to do. I'm going to take my picture that I already have, and I'm trying to use it on my headshot in LinkedIn. So you'll see a lot of people. This is my Facebook picture, and it's also my LinkedIn picture, but it just doesn't work the same way, and you got to kind of treat it differently. So and I'm sure we'll go into a little bit more, but people, I think some people are going to be concerned, like, can we take a picture, or do I need to go to a professional? And and I know we're going to go into more detail of it, but is that something that people can do? Is it harder than you think?
Um, it's not hard if you have some basic steps to go along, which we're going to talk about. So
Mhm.
it's definitely doable to do it yourself. I think that, if you have it within your budget to hire a professional, it's something that you should consider. But not everyone does, and that's okay. And you might just want to take your own photo, and that's all right too. And that is why we're going to provide you all with some of these like best practices to do that,
Mhm.
because it's definitely doable.
Nice, nice. And so I think to kind of start off, you between you and I, when we started talking, you made a distinction about headshots that I didn't even know, and that was the distinction between headshots and branding photos. So I think we're gonna jump up and kind of get our little presentation going, just to kind of start looking into that. So give me
Yeah.
1 second as we load this page, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between headshots and personal branding photos. So
Mhm.
I guess to start off, can you tell me a little bit what are headshots?
Yeah. So for me, a headshot is primarily like a face and shoulders portrait. It's mainly just to capture your physical appearance so that you're able to provide people with, a way to identify you, again, to build that trust. This is kind of the more traditional type of portrait of you. It's usually used for business profiles, maybe on resumes. I've heard mixed things about people putting photos on resumes. And also would be used for, corporate websites for your employer, or things like that. And then the main goal for a traditional headshot is just to present the subject in a clear, professional manner without distraction. So again, this is typically going to be done on a plain solid backdrop, where really you are the entire focus of the photo and the environment around you isn't really going to be pulling anyone's attention.
Yeah, I think this is what a lot of people under think about when they think of I got to get a picture for work and I got to get a
Mhm.
picture for my profile. And yeah, it's funny about the resume one that I've never had to do that except for one job that asked me to send. a picture that they were going to put on the resume too. So I think some more companies are starting to include that. So what they'll do is they'll print out or get your picture from LinkedIn, so that when they present it, because there's so many people getting interviewed sometimes, that they'll send that information out to. It's very common for like a recruiter to send that your LinkedIn profile with your picture to the person that's going to interview you, so they kind of get an idea of who you are before you get there. And so it's
Yeah.
one of the first impressions you're going to get. So I think because like I said, I thought it was great you put in resumes, because it's like it used to be an old thing where people used to put their resumes with a picture, and people stopped doing it, and now they're sending you a LinkedIn with a picture. So you better look right. So
Yeah.
uh, so let's look at some examples. I think you sent me some examples here.
Yeah, yeah. Again, so these are all just, on those plain backdrops. We're making the subject the focus of the photo, and these are just going to be providing, that initial physical introduction to you. Um, so again, these are the really traditional versions, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're just traditional.
Yeah, and I mean it's traditional for a reason, right? Things are usually traditional because it works. So the other option you said was branding,
Mhm.
personal branding photo. So what is a personal branding photo?
Yeah, so these personal branding photos, these are the ones where you're going to really pull in your personality. They're going to convey your personality, your brand, your values. These might still include a close up photo of your face, but they're going to include additional elements like props, storytelling environments. And they really are used to tell a story about the individual and create a deeper connection with your audience. And then you can use these for marketing materials, for social media profiles, for promotional campaigns, and really to reinforce your brand and make you stand apart from your competition. Like I said, these are really the opportunity that you have to put your personality into it. And, depending, they can be something that really sets you apart from the rest.
Yeah, and these seem a little more fun. These seem like they're a
Yeah.
little more exciting, a little less stuffy. I know when I got my job, they always ask for headshots, but if you didn't have a headshot, they're like, well, we can have you come into the office and you stand in the lobby and we'll take a picture, and it's very just traditional or whatever. It's not going to be a great a fun personal brand photo, but it accomplishes that professional. It's an accounting firm. It's a professional picture that they need. So
Yeah.
so even people who are doing their headshots at home, even companies will just take a picture in the lobby to get you some basic headshots. So I guess these are some examples of some branding.
Yeah. And so you can see none of these are on a plain backdrop. They're kind of all in real life environments. Some of them are outside in like an urban downtown area. We have the very first one, which is a client who had just opened a new restaurant, and we really wanted to highlight, you know, we wanted to highlight him, but we also wanted to really bring the product that he served to the forefront. So we included that. You can also see there's another one of a woman who is chopping some vegetables, and she was an Ayurvedic life and health coach. So we really wanted to incorporate some of that stuff in, and even to having something that's more of like an action shot where we have the the gentleman who is looking at some paperwork with a woman next to him. So these are really the opportunity that you have to tell the story of your experience in your business and what you do.
Yeah. These kind of sometimes look like stock photos and stuff, but you'll be surprised how much of this can be really valuable on like a website, or
Mhm.
and especially if you're doing anything type of marketing, popping it on a flyer, post, or a social post to talk about your company, it sticks out a little more than just your face. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It really helps people to remember you.
yeah, and what I really like is the creativity of it. And so, um, obviously, we talked a little bit about sometimes industry can be a big factor on what you choose, whether you're choosing a branding or you're choosing a headshot. But what about experience? Like, can younger, inexperienced people who haven't got they're not high level yet, can they go with more of a branding shot, or what about if you are super experienced? Do you have to stick with professional headshots? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think everyone should do what they feel like fits best for them. I don't think there's a one size answer for anyone. I think that, even looking at this, so these are all branding photos. There's the one who's the young man in the bottom corner against the brick wall. And this is a 20-year-old young adult. And we chose to do some branding photos for him, and he's used them online on his website, on marketing materials. And the fact that he's young and doesn't necessarily have a ton of experience didn't stop us from doing that.
Mhm.
And then conversely, on the other hand, if you look at the second photo that's in the top of the gentleman with his arm kind of rested along the wall, this is someone who has been in the financial sector for decades. And he wanted something beyond the traditional on a backdrop. He wanted something that showed his personality a little bit more. And it's still a headshot. You're still, the focus is still on him, but we've got kind of an environment around him that really helps to, I think, convey what he does. So I think that you really can go either way. And if you're a young person and you feel like, well, I want to go the more traditional route and really reinforce my professionalism, go ahead and do that. But you have options, and it's not there's not one answer for everyone.
Awesome. And so I think the next thing we're going to talk about is DIY, taking your headshots, doing them yourself, and um, not necessarily if you don't have the money, or you just want to try it on your own. I think
Mhm.
you came with some great advice on helping you us with our DIY headshots. So I'll let you start off with I guess what type of equipment do we need?
Yeah. So the very basic things that you need are going to be your smartphone. We all have smartphones, and they have phenomenal cameras in them at this point. The technology in phones it's really up there. And I think, frankly, unless you're someone that is very experienced with a regular camera, you're going to be better off using your phone anyway, just for the ease of use. The next thing that is really important is that you're either going to have a tripod to hold your phone, maybe a steady surface to rest your phone on, or a helper who can hold it and actually take the photo. You can also use a shutter release, which is a little device that you link to your phone with Bluetooth, and you click the button and it takes the photo for you. It just kind of eases the process. The other things that you're going to need are kind of the environment around you. And so the most important thing is diffused natural lighting. So you don't want to do this. Right now it's 7:30 in the evening. We don't have a lot of great natural light coming in through the windows. This is probably not the time of day that you would want to do it. You're going to want to do this, during the bright time during the day, and you want to do this either indoors in your home where there is bright natural light coming in that is not direct sunlight, or maybe somewhere outdoors that has shade, so under some kind of cover. And when I say shade, I mean full shade, no dappled sunlight coming in. So that's really important. And then the last piece of this is that you're going to need a plain background, so that might be just a neutral wall, or a natural environment that's not super busy. So, maybe you work in an office that is just a really cool looking environment that can work. You just want to make sure it's not too busy. It's not too busy looking. One of the things that I always tell people is like unclutter your space. So like I've got like some Purell on my counter behind me. Like those are all things that I would get rid of before I did this.
Yeah, I think people don't realize sometimes what the background will capture that you weren't aware of. I
Mhm.
think I told you this when we talked before, that at my job we have standardized wallpapers on our Zoom, and we have one wallpaper of our lobby. They updated our lobbies. A lot of companies update their lobbies, make it look great to attract customers, and we have this Zoom wallpaper. And there's just some guy chilling on a couch, slouched out on his phone. And now he lives in infamy at all our Zoom meetings, where he's just the guy sitting in the background. So sometimes you don't notice these little things in the background
Yeah.
that can can
Yeah.
distract people from you, and that's, I think, what
Yeah.
you don't want. So
Absolutely. And we have certainly there's apps that you could use to get rid of them, but I think that the better scenario is that you are very intentional with what is in the background of your photo. So you're not having to count on editing it out, because even if you're using a program that will do it, it doesn't always do it perfectly. So try and have the setup right from the beginning. That's really important.
yeah, and sometimes the editing is harder than you think it was going to be,
Mhm.
and you'll spend more time editing something than you would have just taking another picture to take it right. So,
Huh?
it takes 5 minutes to move that coffee cup off of the thing, but a few hours and times to Photoshop it out if you don't know what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
and the nice thing, I think, what you mentioned here that I didn't even realize, that shutter release, because as you mentioned, it will make things easier. You don't have to worry about pressing it. But I always think of the headache of when you're trying to take a picture. You put your phone on, even if you hit um,
The
the
timer.
timer, yeah, and then you hit it, and then you take a picture, and your phone just rotated a little bit because of your finger,
Mhm.
and it's off. You
Yeah.
got to go back and do it again, or
Yeah.
you hit it and then it vibrates, and then the tripod falls over it. So yeah, that's awesome, and I think they're only like $6 on Amazon, so that's
Yeah, yeah, they're really inexpensive, and they just make your life so much easier, so I highly recommend it.
yeah, that's a pro tip right there. So I appreciate that. So
Mhm.
so I think we're going to move on a little bit into looking at some do's and don'ts, right? So yeah, well, I put don'ts and do's because the way we are displaying it on the screen,
Yeah.
but so we'll start off here.
Yeah, so number 1 is you don't wanna wear anything overly casual, so the clothes that you're wearing to relax at home on the weekends is probably not the outfit that you wanna wear for your DIY headshot. So I, enlisted my, 19-year-old niece to help me, and we took, some sample photos for you all. So, she's in a t-shirt, this is totally what she would be wearing hanging at home, and I had to give her the pretty stern Didi talk of you need to borrow something nice from your mom to look professional. So don't take the picture in your t-shirt unless maybe it's a really nice t-shirt and it works for the message that you're trying to convey, and that's okay. I think in this case, this was totally her, like, I'm lying around on the couch at home. So don't do that. What you do want to do is wear something professional that represents your style. I always recommend for clothing is you don't want something that is too big or too tight. You want it to be fitted well. Some of the general things that I recommend are usually I say stay away from pastels. White is fine if you want to wear like a white button up or something like that. That's totally okay. But usually I'm going to recommend darker colors, and then stay away from any really busy patterns that are going to distract from the photo. So solids are usually best. And then some things that I recommend for women, I know that a lot of us are self-conscious of certain areas. So like for me, my area that I'm self-conscious of is my arms. So I would recommend for someone like me, I would say, well, put a cardigan over your shirt that you're wearing, and that will sort of help there. So those are just some basic clothing choices. But you want it to be professional and something that really represents you.
Yeah, and I think something people don't understand either sometimes is, we're going to talk about these rules. And I think for each one of these rules, you're also going to talk about an exception to the rule, because there's always
Mhm.
something where it's like, yeah, t-shirt might not work for you, but maybe, it will for the type of job you have or what you're trying to
Mhm.
convey or the type of branding you're looking for. But I still think there's some things like, do you want to wear your 420 shirt on LinkedIn when you go for a job interview? And then also, I think for me, one of the big things that a lot of us don't notice is how wrinkly your shirt looks. But yeah, it's a nice casual shirt, and maybe that's the message you're kind of convey. But it could be extremely wrinkly. Throw it in the
Yeah,
in the drying machine for like 30 seconds before you put it on, just to kind of get some of those
yeah,
wrinkles out. So
yeah. Do the lint roller, that kind of
the
thing.
lint roller, the dandruff on the shirt. Nobody zoom into my LinkedIn profile picture. You'll see some fur and some dandruff on me, and I'm really embarrassed. And hopefully, we'll be changing that soon. So, okay, so let's go on to the next one. All right.
Um, yeah, so don't just pick up your phone and take your selfie. Don't do that. One is that you're gonna have your arm in your photo, like you can notice in the don't sample photo here. But also, it sort of distorts the perspective, and that's probably not what you want. So, what I do recommend is to put your phone on that tripod that we talked about, or rest it on a steady surface. So, if you've got like a table or maybe a shelf, something like that, that's at the right height level. Set it there or enlist a helper. So, find a friend, find a family member, and just ask them to hold the photo or hold the camera and click the shutter for you. And again, if you're using the tripod or if you're setting your phone up somewhere on a shelf or a table, you're going to want to use that timer function or get that shutter release that we talked about already.
Yep, yep. And you don't gotta go crazy with your tripod. You don't need to go buy like a $60 tripod or anything like that. They sell $5, $10 tripods for iPhones that were just great. And so I'll make sure to based off of Brenda's recommendations and to post them in the description too for people. So um, cool. Yeah, and I think it's a very common selfie headshot that people try to do because I know that's the first thing I tried to do because I needed a picture for work and I'm like, oh, I'll just go in the thing and every angle I was doing, I was like, what the hell? And I ran back inside, and mind you, I'm like like I said, if you look at my headshot picture, it's funny because I'm wearing like a professional, but I'm wearing like sweatpants on the bottom because I work from home. So I just went out to take a picture and I took some selfies and I'm like, these look all horrible. Like you see my arm, my thing, my neck is all lower or I'm all too high. And then I had to wait till my wife got home from work and she helped me take some pictures so that, use a friend. There's always someone that can help.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's go to the next one. All right.
So don't take your photo in a place with a really busy background. You want to pay, well, like we talked about already, you want to pay attention to what is going to be in the background of your photo. And if you're not using a plain wall, that is okay, but be intentional about what is behind you in the photo. So with this sample photo, you can see there's some cardboard boxes behind her. There's like a thing on the wall that's sort of like jutting out of the side of her head. That's not what you want. You want something that looks a little more put together. And so again, for our sample do photo, we have her just against the plain wall, but certainly in this particular room in the house, there are a lot of really beautiful plants. So I could see that kind of becoming part of the background. You just have to be intentional about the way that you compose it, and what is actually going to show up back there.
Yeah, and I don't think there's been any person in the world who has never at one point posted a picture on Facebook or something to get a text message from someone. Oh my God, do you see what's in your background? Take that picture over the internet. Like we've all
Yeah.
been there at something really embarrassing that you didn't pick up, you didn't realize, or when you're in your teens and you take a picture and there's a beer bottle in the back and you're like, oh, your mom's gonna see that. There's always one little thing that you didn't miss. So like you said, be very intentional with what you're doing. I think it's a really important one.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one. All right.
Okay, so this is about the lighting. So I already mentioned don't take your photo in direct sunlight. So she's in like half sunlight in this photo. She's squinting because it's so bright. You can notice like the shadows around her mouth are really harsh, and that's it. It's not really, I don't know, it's not a super flattering look, I don't think. So what I always recommend doing is placing your subject, which is going to be you in this case, in an area with bright, diffused natural lighting. Again, we don't want to be using like the lamp that is on, next to the couch at 8 o'clock at night. We want to do this at the right time of day. So, if you're someone that works like a 9 to 5 job and during the week you're not home during the hours of daylight, that's okay. Do it on the weekend at 10 o'clock in the morning next to a bright window. So that's kind of, you can really see the difference in the lighting between these two photos. And it's just quite simply going from sunlight, which is not ideal, to a nice, bright, diffused light. This was right around 10 o'clock in the morning. So just be aware of the light that you're using.
Yeah, I think sometimes people don't realize the importance of diffused lighting. I know when I was doing my wedding, and my photographer, she was like, hope for a cloudy day because you'll get better pictures on a slightly cloudy day than you will if it's completely sunny, especially in Texas sun. It'll
Yeah.
be gleaming on your face, and it can really wash out stuff. So, yeah, understand the difference as well. So,
Hmm.
and what about sometimes these selfie cameras? The round circle ones that they sell. Are
Hmm.
those good for?
Oh, you're talking. What you're talking about is a little ring light. Is that what you're
Yeah, like
talking?
the little ring lights. Yeah,
Yeah.
are those helpful too? Or
They can be, yeah. I think that you have to just be careful because if you're using that, number one is if you angle it weird and you have glasses, it's going to show up in your glasses. So that's the first thing. And they're going to see your little selfie ring light
Mhm.
in your photo, which is probably not ideal. And then, so like again, it's still not something that you're going to want to do at like 8 o'clock at night when you don't have any natural light coming in. I think that if you're in an area of your home that where the light isn't quite as bright as you would want it to be, it diffused bright, you could certainly use something like that to add, a little extra light to your face. And there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yeah, and I recommend if you guys buy one of those ring lights to make sure that it's adjustable and can be changed between the yellow and the white light. So depending on
Yep.
the light level and what you're looking for, you can get it to match. So
Yep. Exactly.
cool. And then let's go to this next one.
Yeah. And so you don't want to use any extreme upward or downward angle. I think those of us of a certain age are all very used to taking selfies kind of like this, where the camera is a little bit on an upward angle. And that's not really ideal because that's going to distort the photo a little bit. It's also going to, like, it's just going to change the angle of the photo. Sorry, it's a little noisy.
No, it's the cops. There was a selfie faux pas that they're gonna go
Yeah,
stop.
I think so. But yeah, so you want to have your phone at eye level. So you're going to want it kind of right in front of you, so that you're capturing your true likeness the way that most people would see you. Again, you don't want to be shooting on this upward weird angle, and you also don't want that like extreme downward angle. It's just keeping the camera level is going to keep everything looking the way that the human eye sees it. So that's the goal.
Yeah, and I think for sometimes as we get older, some things sag a little more, and some things drag a little more, and we try to hide it by angling things, and the angle creates just weirdness all over the place. So sometimes
Yeah.
just try to find the best one.
Yep.
Oh, there's the police.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to the next one.
All right. So this is about your posture when you're taking your photo. Don't slouch. Don't keep your arms pasted to your sides. It's just it's always a little bit better. Well, it's a lot better if you're sitting up straight, right? Sit up straight, shoulders down. For me, even as a photographer, when I have someone take my photo, I have a habit of doing this and bringing my shoulders up because you get tense because most of us don't like enjoy having our photos taken. That's just sort of the bottom line. But you want to sit up nice and straight. You want your shoulders down, and I always recommend having a little bit of bend in your arms. You don't want your arms totally straight, flat to your side of your body, and just having that little bit of a bend is a little bit more flattering. Again, this is not the 10-15 years ago like teapot kind of thing we used to do. This is just a slight bend that creates a little bit of shape between your arm and your body. It's just something that's a little bit more flattering and it looks a little bit more polished.
Nice. Yeah, the teapot comment. That's hilarious.
Mhm.
All right, so let's go to this last one. So,
So here's the thing. So we're taking photos digitally. I don't know how many photos you have in your photo library on your phone, but I think I have about 30,000 on my phone. Our phones are capable of holding massive amounts of photos. Don't be afraid to take many photos when you're doing this. Don't just take one or two and say, okay, that's good. Take many, experiment with like differing angles. Again, you want to keep the phone at eye level, but you can change up the angle of the phone on you. And then you also can change your face position. You can turn your body to the side a little bit and turn your face. You want to just really experiment and then also play around with different expressions. Some people really love the way they look with a full smile with all their teeth. Some people prefer a closed smile. Is really, what you feel the best about, but you're not going to know unless you take all of the photos to experiment with.
Yeah, and to go back to my story of my headshot where I'm outside in my pajamas and and a blazer with a shirt out in the cold. I did that where I was like, oh, okay, I took. Okay, these are great. I run inside, upload it to my computer, look at them, like, oh, these are horrible. And I went back outside, took a few more. Okay, no, let me try a different angle. Went back. So I went back and forth like for like a good hour like an idiot running back and forth. My neighbors are watching, like, how's this guy doing? Taking pictures, trying different images, different things. Like, and it took me a while. And like I said, even then, it was when my wife came in. I was like, just keep taking pictures until we find one that looks good. So,
Yeah.
you could be too far, you could be too close. All the ones I thought were going to be great were horrible. So yeah, don't be
Yeah.
cheap with your pictures. They don't cost money. They're not the disposable cameras like back in the day. So
Yeah, exactly.
sweet, sweet. Well, I think that's the last one. So I think now we'll kind of come in and talk a little bit about, if you do want to take the opportunity and, spend some money and, hire a professional, what are some of the benefits from, hiring a professional? So you being the professional, let me know.
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to share is that there are going to be photographers at every budget. You can find someone that will take your headshot for $50. You can find someone who will take your headshot for $5,000. And I'm not kidding. That's really the range that there is. So generally speaking, you should be able to find someone that is within your budget, someone that is affordable to you. And the grain of salt to keep with that is to know that just like there are photographers at every budget, there are photographers at all different experience levels, photographers who may specialize in different things. So you should be able to find someone. You may just have to do your research on it. um, and then the other thing that I always like to start with is find someone that is a good fit with you personality wise, because if you're not comfortable with the person, you're not going to look comfortable in your photo. And you really need that level of ease so that when folks are viewing your headshot, it's on your LinkedIn or it's on your website or on your social media, you want it to be kind of inviting and make them feel welcome with you.
Mhm. Yeah, like I said, I always go back to my memories of my wedding and meeting different vendors for different things, and the personality was usually the biggest turnoff initially. It's like dating, it's like, do we click? Are we gonna have fun? Are you gonna make my time enjoyable? Is this smile forced, or am I actually having a good time in my picture? And if you're gonna spend the money, might as well have a good time with it. So,
Yeah.
and like I know different price points. If you don't have a lot of money, is it okay to say I want to see your portfolio before I get pictures, or should you just be kind of like, oh, I'll take the risk?
Well, number one is I would hope that the photographer that you're going to hire has a website. That's the first thing that I would hope they have. And if they don't have headshots or branding photos already on their website, and they're telling you, yes, I will shoot your headshot, 100% ask for samples of their previous work. Sometimes there may be photographers who, for the most part, specialize in, say, family portraits, but they do headshots, you know, not regularly, but frequently enough, and they will have a portfolio to show you. If they've never done a headshot before, I might be a little more wary of that. Um, because you do want someone that has that experience, that knows what to do to make you look your best. But definitely, you can ask for a portfolio.
Yeah, I think you also like you said, sometimes you don't know what you don't like until you start seeing what they have, and sometimes you might see a common trend in the portfolio, and you're like, maybe this isn't right, or they might have something you didn't even know that you like, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing the way you took this picture. I would like a picture similar. So I think looking at that portfolio is always going to be important. So what other suggestions do you have for us when it comes to looking for a professional?
So we already talked about, finding someone that has experience and expertise. But you also want to make sure that they they are interacting with you in a professional way and that they're communicative. Um, you know, Photography is just like any other industry where, sometimes people are not the most communicative, and that can be a real hindrance to the process. I think, especially in something like photography, where realistically you're contacting a photographer, you're explaining, okay, I need this headshot for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like, you really do need to have that back and forth communication to ensure that you're going to get a final product that you love, that you're happy to put out there on your LinkedIn, on your website, etc. So you want to make sure that it feels professional on those levels. I would also say look for a photographer that is going to provide you with a contract. Don't work with someone who just says, "Oh yeah, just come and Venmo me $100 and show up and I'll take it and that's it." You want to make sure you're working with someone who is legit, who has, again, that professionalism. And then
I was
you
gonna ask that. I was gonna ask, is it normal to pay beforehand, or do you pay like half and half usually, or is it like, well, we pay you the day we get our pictures?
So every photographer is going to have different processes for that. Some photographers are going to have just a basic session fee, and that's just going to cover their time for you to come, either come to their studio or meet them somewhere on location. And then you would purchase whatever images you want afterwards. There are going to be photographers who include, a set number of images within that the session fee that you pay to book. A lot of photographers are probably going to have you pay something upfront, if not the full fee. I personally, my process is that clients pay the full booking fee before they ever show up. Because if you don't pay me, I'm not showing up to work. That's the way that it works for me.
Yeah.
And
The
again,
benefits of entrepreneurship. So
well, yeah. But again, there are photographers who might say, "Oh no, you come and pay me the day of the session." Uh, I don't think you're gonna find many photographers who will say, "Come in and then pay me later when you get the photos." Typically, it's gonna be you're gonna pay by the day of the session or at the time you book the session. But you do want to find all those like normal professional steps leading up to it. So that's kind of that basic thing.
and is it usually with editing and stuff like that included on those?
So that's absolutely something you should be asking. So most photographers, and I'm going to say most, but again, there's always going to be outliers, are going to do some level of editing. It's going to be very rare that you're going to find someone who just takes the picture, downloads it, and then gives it to you. You might want to ask about what level of editing is included. So for headshots, for me, I am going to go in and I adjust for, light levels, contrast, making sure that the color looks accurate. But also for headshots, I'm going to go in and I am going to touch up anything that isn't permanent. So if you've got a big ol' zit on your nose, like, I'm going to touch that up. Um, there might be photographers who do, more full on retouching. They might say, "Oh yeah, I'll make you 25 pounds lighter," whatever kind of crazy thing. You probably can find someone who will do it. You just need to ask about it.
Mhm.
And then you also want to ask about the delivery process. You want to know how long it's going to take you to get your photos and when you can expect them. So all of that stuff hopefully is going to be outlined in the contract that you signed when you booked. You also may want to ask if they have a studio or if you're going to do the session somewhere out on location. Again, we know that you can take a really nice branding photo that is somewhere that's not on a plain backdrop. And they could be a photographer that has transportable, portable backdrops. So even if they don't have a studio, they may be able to bring a backdrop to you and set it up if you want that more traditional headshot. So that's all things that you should be asking. And then, especially because these are going to be used for business purposes, you want to ensure that the photos are going to be delivered to you with commercial usage rights. Probably not copyrights because the photographer always retains the copyright, but you want to ensure that you have the rights to use it for business purposes. Some photographers will differentiate between personal usage rights and commercial usage rights. So for me, I photograph lots of families, and if you showed up to your family session and said, "Hey, oh, can you take my headshot during this family session?" I would say, "Sure," but we're going to have to talk about the differences in the usage rights that you have. And you may be able to get a headshot taken at your family portrait session, but your photographer might say, "Okay, it's just going to be an additional fee to have the commercial rights."
Yeah.
Uh, so those
And
are
for,
all things that you should
and for
ask.
people to understand the reasoning behind that, I never, I've done graphic design for a while, and one of the things I always talk about is if you create a logo for a company for $50 and that company makes $10 million,
Mhm.
you didn't get any of that money. So there's logos, pictures, stuff like that that is business related tend to be more costly because there's a potential of them earning because of that picture that needs to be compensated. So it's only fair. So. Well, that's awesome. And then, thank you for all that and all the do's and don'ts for everything. So I think kind of going back to the do's and don'ts and the DIY side of things. So, we obviously, it would be great if everybody can get a photographer. And we're still going to go back to if you can't, we've learned how to take the pictures. Do you have any suggestions on editing? Like, okay, now I have my picture. What do I have to do to edit and clean up my picture to get it ready that I've taken myself?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, like I mentioned, our phones all have really, really capable cameras in them now, and we also have editing software in them. So the thing that I'm going to recommend is you want to edit with a light touch. Typically, I would say that you want your photos to look accurate to what we see with our eye. So sometimes that might be just adding, a little bit more depth to the shadows. That might be a little pull of the contrast slider. If you just, I know in my iPhone I have a contrast slider. So that might be something that you would do, but you don't want to do anything too crazy. You don't want it to look edited. And even if, you have like the full Adobe apps on your phone, like don't go crazy. Don't, again, don't make yourself 25 pounds lighter. You want to look like you. So I would say edit with a light touch. Crop out any distracting background elements. So again, like I mentioned, I'm here in my office in my studio, and I've got like water bottles and like goldfish crackers and stuff behind me. So those are all things that I would want to crop out if I were taking a headshot of myself right here. So crop those things out, and then make sure that you're saving the photo in a high resolution format. Don't just screenshot it, because that's going to be a low resolution file. And then if you upload that, it might start to look pretty terrible. So just kind of, those are some basic good practices for what to do with your DIY headshot after
Yeah.
you.
And remember your do's and don'ts, and what the headshot is: shoulders, heads, don't crop up to your face right here and you just have the head on your LinkedIn profile. I've seen that all the time. So,
Yeah.
so speaking of seeing things that are bad on LinkedIn, I think we're going to end this session with looking at some of my silly pictures and talking about some of the basic bad pictures that I get to see sometimes on LinkedIn. So I'm going to present you my pictures, and you're going to give me some reasons why this would not be a good picture. So we'll start off. There we
All right.
go.
I'm gonna be very nice about it. But you're so formal. You've got your boutonniere. It's like you can tell this is obviously not a headshot. This is, I think it's you at your wedding. It could be a groomsman at a wedding, any formal event. It's a little bit much for a professional environment.
Yeah, it's exactly for my wedding, and I will be the first one to admit that I think I put this up on my LinkedIn for a little bit of time because I didn't have anything super professional. So yeah, I think your first instincts for a lot of people is I look good, I look formal, this is
Mhm.
perfect for work. But there's a level to it. There's a difference between professional and formal, that sometimes we mix just because you're wearing a suit and a tie. It's not always the same thing. So
Yeah.
thank you for being nice to me. So here's another one.
Yeah, you cropped your beautiful wife out of it, and we can tell. And you don't want that other person cropped out in your photo because it distracts from you. And it's also really, really close in on your face. So there's a couple of things that could be improved here.
Yeah, and I think also it's busy in the background, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. We don't talk, get the shoulder, and I think that's I think a good rule of thumb. If you can't crop yourself and just yourself with your head and your shoulder because there's someone else in there or someone else, it might not be a good picture to take. And I think it's another one of those situations where, oh, I'm dressed up nice for my dinner. It's a good picture of me. I
Mhm.
like the angle. I don't have a big chin. It makes me look more appealing. And yeah, in truth, it's great, and it's probably a great Facebook picture. But
Mhm.
for a headshot, it's probably not the right picture for you. So
Yeah.
this is fun. Here's another one.
Again, super close in. It looks like you've cropped someone out of there, right?
Yeah, it's my grandma. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I would say also maybe this was taken with maybe like a lesser quality phone, or maybe like an older technology. It doesn't look as it just doesn't look, the quality of the image doesn't look like what I would hope to see on a LinkedIn profile.
yeah, yeah. And then it's also not only low quality, it was bad lighting, and it was a really zoomed out picture that I zoomed in really quickly because it's just my head. So I'm a little head in a big picture. If I try to stretch it out, it's not going to look good. So here's another one.
Uh, well,
She's
this
laughing
one,
because this is a classic picture of what I used to look like all the time in college.
yeah, this is definitely the Raul that I remember.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, don't have alcohol in your professional headshots, because it's not professional.
yeah.
Unless you're someone in the alcohol industry, maybe you work for a distillery. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I would say this is probably not the look you're going for.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like I said, there's always a differentiator between what's a good Facebook picture versus what's a good LinkedIn picture.
Mhm.
I took a picture of me with a knife, because I was cooking and I love cooking, and I took it, I put it on Facebook, and I'm getting my buddy's mom sending me a message. Why you look like you're gonna kill someone? It's like I thought I was presenting myself as a chef. So I can imagine, if I'm on LinkedIn, maybe if I was a chef, a knife is something good, but my people might see it differently. And the same thing with alcohol, drugs, anything like that. Yeah, it might be fine in your personal time, but companies will judge you based off of what they see. So,
Yeah.
and then here I think is my last picture, which is an awesome picture by the way. But yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, this is like such a fun picture. You're obviously somewhere amazing in the world. But like you've got sunglasses on. I can't even see your face. And I mean, honestly, the background is amazing, but I'm looking at the background and not at you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This is where the background is much more appealing than me, which doesn't happen all the time. So it's, but yeah, no, exactly. That's the reason I picked this picture too. Where it's like, oh, this is once again a great Facebook picture, but if I put this on LinkedIn, it wouldn't be very appealing. We also got to remember on LinkedIn, it crops you to a little circle, so that that Machu Picchu in the background isn't going to make much of an impact, moving forward. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the roast of Raul Lopez. Thank you, Brenda, for helping me out on that. So great, wonderful. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think we've hit all the talking points that we were planning on talking about, and so thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on here, and hopefully, some people can walk away from today with some valuable information. Can you tell us how people can reach out to you, especially if they're looking for a photographer for headshots? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I travel, number one, so that's important to remember. But you can find me at brendadelasantos.com. And my social media handles for Instagram and Facebook are just Brenda De Los Santos Photography. So I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm easily Googleable. So,
Nice, nice,
yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brenda. I really appreciate you taking the time to come up here and drop some knowledge. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and for everyone else, once again, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got through this Palante series with no technical difficulties like last time. So I've learned from my mistakes. But join me again next time as we continue to go Palante. Peace.